Welcome to this edition of Go Vote Omaha, presented by the League of Women Voters of Greater Omaha. I'm Krystal Fox, Co-Director of Social Policy for the League of Women Voters Nebraska, and your host for today's program. Today, we are talking to our friends from Bike Walk Nebraska about active transportation and the barriers faced by rural and urban Nebraskans. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization and does not endorse political candidates or parties. The League does, however, take positions on issues. Our purpose is to empower voters and defend democracy. Go Vote Omaha primarily focuses on policy issues, and as a result of our discussions, we hope you will feel ready to make informed decisions at election time. Joining us today is Executive Director of Bike Walk Nebraska, Julie Harris, and Associate Director, Cait Dumas-Hein. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So we're going to jump right into our conversation. To begin, could you tell us who Bike Walk Nebraska is and what kind of work you do?
Sure. Bike Walk Nebraska is the state bicycle and pedestrian advocacy organization. We're a nonprofit, and we advocate for safe and accessible biking and walking and transit across the state.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you summed that up perfectly.
Great. Can you tell me how you got started and why this issue is important to you?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah.
That's you were at the inception of it, so you should be there.
Well, we're at the 10-year mark now, which is really
wow.
exciting and hard to believe. It's gone fast. So 10 years ago, we just had a group of volunteers that came together, formed a board of directors, got our 501c3 going, and just said, we want to make progress in this space.
Yeah.
We found out pretty quickly that we needed somebody who was dedicated on staff to really make good progress. And so then about not quite 9 years ago, I came on as the first employee and worked by myself for quite a few years. But now we have a really great team, and we have Cait and we have Taylor in our office who can help do the things that I'm not really great at. So we're really in a good place now and excited to celebrate 10 years.
That's exciting. Can you tell us some successes your organization has experienced as you do this work?
Yeah, so they've accomplished a lot over the last 10 years. We've worked pretty heavily in state policy since we're the only statewide advocacy organizations. There's a lot of local or regional organizations who do similar work along us, but we focus primarily on legislature. So we've had, we just had, this last year, we had an e-bike classification bill go through, which helps e-bikes be more accessible on the infrastructure throughout the state. There was a bill passed in 2013, maybe if I'm remembering that date correctly, about giving bicyclists the same rights as pedestrians in crosswalks. So if they were struck by a driver, they would then therefore have legal recourse in that experience. Those have been some pretty ones. We helped secure $8.3 million to help complete a trail gap that connects Lincoln and Omaha. So that was a pretty big one for us as well. And there's been some smaller ones throughout the years, but the policy is where we really focus our efforts when it comes to sustainable change.
And I guess my question is so Bike Walk Nebraska is focusing on transportation statewide because we don't do it well here in Nebraska or anywhere in our country? Like what?
Oh, that's such a great question.
I would say that we serve people who bike and ride for whatever reason, but it's our jobs to make sure that the issues of folks who don't have a choice but to walk or bike or use transit are really not forgotten, because I think a lot of times people think about biking and they think about their fun recreational ride, which is great, but what we really have a mission to make sure that those who don't have a choice aren't forgotten in the policy work. So we do spend a lot of time reminding people that not everybody just bikes for fun.
Yes, I needed that reminder in myself. So your organization is the only statewide advocacy group around transportation. Are you a standalone organization, or do you work with other organizations, and how does those relationships work?
Yeah, so we partner with a lot of fellow organizations that that pursue similar work. Heartland Bike Share, Nebraska Trails Foundation. There's a lot of other great organizations and nonprofits that are working throughout the state, and I think that that's a common misconception about Nebraska, because it's not the world's most bike-friendly state, or the most, with the rural areas in particular, public transit isn't as prevalent in metropolitan areas, but there's so much happening across the state. So we do work on coalitions or provide insight or community engagement. Julie's an expert in government relations, so she serves on a lot of coalitions that way, and truly trying to collaborate and pull in the same direction together.
What's like the dream, like what does it look like if we are doing, excuse me, transportation well for your from your organization's point of view?
Right. Well, I think the League of American Bicyclists, who is a national organization that does this kind of work on the federal level, every couple of years they put out a ranking of bicycle-friendly states and who is the most bike-friendly and who's the least bike-friendly. And I'm sure it won't surprise you that we landed at number 50 a couple of years ago. We've gotten up to 49. We're moving up, right? Moved up one notch.
Okay.
But there's a lot of work to do, and it's really very policy-based.
Okay.
You know, it's decisions that get made at the Nebraska Department of Transportation.
On how the roads are built.
On how the roads are built, on the, you know, when cities are planned, when roads are expanded, when suburbs are expanded, these types of things. So, you know, in the best case scenario, every time a decision gets made about transportation, we're thinking about more than just the people in the cars, but we're also thinking about the walking, the biking, the folks who are using a wheelchair or a walker or another assistive device or a scooter for that matter. So that ideally would be, you know, those things would be baked into every decision that gets made.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for letting me expand on that a little bit. So part of your coordinated effort is to improve accessibility, and you kind of spoke on that. So what is your role in infrastructure prioritization and planning?
So I think this will probably be both of us can touch base on this one, but I think Julie really hit the nail on the head when she talked about like the statewide, like the state coming together. You know, there's things that there's policies or procedures that are put into place either on a regional or a state level that when they choose to do developments, they're thinking of those sorts of things in mind. So like that would be really important. And it's beyond just bikes and pedestrians and people trying to get in transit. And, you know, having a more bike friendly, that's a more accessible and enjoyable active transportation in the state. It increases, you know, the economy. It helps decrease health costs. Like it really it brings tourists to the city, to the area. So it really has more ripple effects than just transportation in and of itself.
Awesome. And is that kind of where your work focuses on? How do we get into the rooms with the people making those decisions?
Yes.
Okay.
And a lot of times we also just work with small advocacy groups in other places.
Okay.
Like in little tiny Taylor, Nebraska, they got a grant for a trail. And we've been in touch with them recently because they need to raise some money for their local match for that grant. They want to find out how they can talk to their decision makers in their community. So we do a lot of coaching and training in that regard as well. We have the national or our state Bike and Walk Summit that we've recently revived. We kind of had to take a break during COVID, but we brought it back this year, and it gives us a chance to bring people together and find out what else is going on in the state and be able to start brainstorming and start connecting the dots where we can help some of these communities in their work.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's mind-blowing. How might people voice their experiences and possible barriers to the infrastructure and how they're moving around the city now?
So, you know, the most obvious answer that's coming to mind for me is you talk to your elected officials, like let them know that this is a prevalent issue for you. There's still like that really common rhetoric that the infrastructure doesn't get used, that you know, people don't need this as much as there is, but I think there's something like 35,000 Nebraskans who don't have access to a car, or their households don't have access to the car, and that's a significant amount of people who need to be able to get around throughout their day. So that's the most obvious answer for me.
Yeah, I think it can be hard because a lot of the solutions that make transportation better and more accessible are a little counterintuitive. So, you know, a lot of people, you hear the word roundabout and it automatically creates this, you know, divisive conversation. You know, and, you know, things like, or adding a bike lane and taking away one lane that cars used to be able to use and repurposing it for a bike lane. These types of things, they help. They make it safer. They actually are shown to move traffic just as well, if not better. So, you know, I think, you know, we just hope people will have an open mind and weigh in when they see, you know, a lot of people just sort of jump to the negative and start in on the social media, and we need folks to, you know, take a step back and really learn what we're trying to say and what the others are trying to say about the benefits of the project, and then, you know, weigh in, because a lot of times it's the negative voices that get heard the most.
That's right.
Yeah. And there's a lot of regional and local organizations who are pursuing this effort. I mean, not even just, Omaha, Lincoln, yes, obviously there's a lot of organizations that are doing it, but I found an organization in Alliance, Nebraska in the Panhandle that is pursuing this within their community. So more often than not, there's already going to be a group of people, an organization, a subset of a health department that is already doing this work, and you can plug into something that they're already doing.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. So when people hear, so you kind of answered this one too, when people hear about transportation, they usually jump to like the big city, metropolitan areas, and that's where we want to focus. How does the work that you do translate to the rural parts of our state?
Probably my biggest soapbox issue is involves highways that roll through our town. So if you're out there on the highway and you're out in wide open central or western Nebraska, eventually you're going to come to a city and it's going to say, welcome to our town. And now that highway becomes Main Street.
Yeah.
And there are people that live in that community that need to cross. There are, a lot of times the residential and the schools are all on one side of the highway, and then all the cool new stuff, the new swimming pool, the baseball diamonds, the community center, the library are on the other side of the highway. So in a rural setting, it's those high-speed highways that are really dicey for people. And we hear about that a lot, that, senior citizens that want to cross to get to their coffee shop every day to see their friends. These are the types of things that our rural communities are experiencing. And a lot of times these rural communities were built without good sidewalk connections and that kind of thing. So, they're similar problems that we have in our cities, but I think they have a bigger impact because there's not a lot of other choice.
Yeah.
And I think in the rural parts especially, and I'm thinking of the Cowboy Trail in the northern part of our state, the potential for tourism is huge. And a lot of, actually Iowa, the Wabash Trace Trail is just over the river, and that has revitalized so many small towns because you're stopping at these small communities as you're riding your bike, and bikes mean business. Like cyclists tend to spend more money than drivers do. There's bike shops that exist within these one-street towns just to be able to support the activity and the tourism that is happening.
Because they've thought about how transportation
Yes,
works.
because the infrastructure exists, because the wayfinding exists, because the trail maintenance exists, and people are wanting to pursue. They want to go on an adventure. They want to go have that experience and get out. And like Nebraska's stunning. Nebraska's beautiful.
Oh, gosh, yes.
So
how interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So I never connected like highway, like a highway being like a transportation issue for the people in that town, because you just you do just slip through them and be like, why did the speed limit drop so low?
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, that makes sense. So what policies does Bike Walk Nebraska usually advocate for, and what ways are people able to get involved with those conversations?
Yeah, so we kind of work on the state level with the Nebraska Department of Transportation, but we also work on the local level. And the policy that we've been kind of describing here is called Complete Streets, which is anytime you're going to go and either build a new street or resurface an existing street or tear it up because you need to put new sewer line in or something. If you're going to tear it up, let's put it back better and make sure that we have a process in place so that every time, like I said before, every time those decisions get made, we are really being thoughtful about making sure we take advantage of these opportunities, because it's never going to be less expensive and it's never going to be easier than it is when you're already doing it for something else. And that can apply on the state level as well. So, those are some policy level things. We certainly celebrated that this week when City of Omaha passed their Vision Zero initiative, which is something that takes a holistic look at all the places in the city that people that can come together and figure out how we can reduce the number of deaths on our roads to zero. And whether it's enforcement or whether it's infrastructure or education or whatever it is. That's another great example. We're glad to see Omaha do it, and we'd love to see Lincoln do it too.
Yeah. So can you expand a little bit on that, like Vision Zero, and what infrastructure, how it contributes to getting to that goal? How infrastructure could? Is that heavy? Did I?
No, that's a really great question.
Okay.
I think who was it? AAA. AAA. The last couple of weeks, they just released some new research that shows that the speed that is driven on roads is the #1 contributing cause to crashes. So the way you build a road and the infrastructure that it is, a road of its less lanes, I am not an engineer, a road engineer by any means, but the way that they're choosing to build the cities and the road and the infrastructure and the pedestrian calming tactics, it all starts to impact safety and accessibility. Because we can see a lot of crashes across the state that happen, and we're like, well, if the intersection was designed differently, it could have been preventable.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Thanks for letting me
absolutely
learn something too.
On the policy side, like we work on the state level with anything that focuses on, inhibits accessibility of cyclists or pedestrians or really anyone who's trying to get around from a car alternative. On a local level, those city ordinances also exist. There's things like honking behind a cyclist or requiring bike registrations, or you can't ride your bike in this certain area of the city for whatever reason. Those are all inhibiting access and make it difficult.
Is that real?
Those are legitimate scenarios.
There's a lot of weird stuff lurking in those local ordinances.
They haven't been updated in decades.
Interesting.
So if someone's really wanting to do their homework and wanting to get involved in their local level, like on the local level in the policy, those are big changes, like small things, but they can make a big impact.
Oh, interesting. Thank you for that. And again, you've kind of answered my next question. What are examples of simple policy changes that have and can make a big impact for walkers and bikers?
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of small changes that can be made. And a lot of times we think about, large pedestrian bridges or, big high dollar projects. But if you think about, here in Omaha in the Blackstone district, they were experiencing some really unfortunate serious injuries and I think even a fatality on Farnham Street. And the city went and literally just sort of with some paint and some flexible bollards really made a huge impact that could immediately make a big difference. It's not nearly as expensive. It's something that can be done very quickly. These are the kinds of things that we're talking about that can make a big difference in terms of safety. And then, there are little things like making sure that we're shoveling our sidewalks when it snows, helping our neighbors, making sure that we get all the way to the street so people can cross the street and not have to walk over a giant hump of ice and snow. So, there's things that we can do in our everyday lives as well that make a difference.
Awesome. I'm guilty of not shoveling that corner. I lived on a corner house. I'm like, I can't do it.
Now we're going to be in your head.
Keep going. Can you give us a snapshot of what your programming and statewide outreach efforts look like?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
Okay, she's like,
yes, please. So this year we launched our Learn to Ride program. So that was targeted at adults and older teens who have never learned how to ride a bike or hadn't ridden one in a while. And we partnered with Heartland Bike Share to be able to do that. So they learned on the Heartland Bike Share bikes, like truly the stories of these people and watching them go from never riding a bike to zooming around a parking lot and being able to ride with their kids or their wife. And that's either they want to do it recreationally or transportationally. And so we've worked in Omaha, we worked to integrate them into the bike share program because they have such a great system across the entire city. I can't remember, 80 or 80-ish. 80-ish stations in the Omaha area. I really should know that.
I really should know that.
So trying to give people this pathway of an alternative mode of transportation and just the joy of cycling. So that's one of our really big programming wins that we had this year. Moving into next year, we're looking to expanding it into 5 different communities across the state. So we've identified some target communities outside of the metropolitan areas so that the rural communities also have access to that kind of programming. And I get pretty excited about it because that's like, those are the moments, the smiles of people riding the bike for the first time. That's what I hold on to.
That's a great skill.
It will restore your faith in humanity to watch somebody learn to ride a bicycle. I assure you.
That's adorable. Anything else you want to highlight for programming and how people can be involved?
There's a lot of really national stuff that happens consistently. So May is National Bike Month. And so we always encourage anybody who's passionate about it, they can look online at these bike to work resources that exist if people want to participate in National Bike to Work Day. There's Safe Route to Schools programs that exist. Lincoln has a really prolific Safe Route to Schools program, which is phenomenal. So does Scottsbluff, Nebraska, actually, on the other side of the state. So there's a lot of options for people to be able to do that, and we'll be providing resources, like we provide resources in addition to the nationally available ones.
Awesome, awesome. What is next for Bike Walk Nebraska, and what are you guys working on bringing to the state next, I guess, now?
Yeah, I think we also, in addition to the Learn to Ride classes, we're looking at training more folks to be certified instructors that can teach safe cycling in general. So if you want to be able to know how to ride safely to the grocery store, to school or whatever, we can teach you those skills. So we're going to be ramping up those efforts as well. And we're always looking for policy issues that we can bring to the forefront. Some of them take longer to percolate than others, but trying to keep an eye on the unicameral and where we can find some like-minded folks and start to build that synergy. That's always something that we're looking to find our most strategic in, because we are a small staff, and we don't have the resources of a full-time lobbyist or anything like that. So we just have to try to find our ways, find our ways to get in that system and take advantage of those opportunities when they come along.
Speaking of the unicameral, like, do you find that our senators and our legislature understands these issues, or does it take time to educate people? I know that I'm like, roundabouts are dumb, but I know, but I understand that they are better, they slow traffic down. So, but it took me a long time to get over my hatred. So how do you maybe work on that piece of education with our?
Well, I think we always are trying to overcome the idea that biking is for more than just recreation.
Okay.
And so that's something that every time I go and testify for a bill or whatever, I try to make sure that we say. But really, I think we've noticed that the city of Lincoln, we have a real vested interest in trying to make sure that the city of Lincoln is as bike friendly as possible, because a lot of these senators from rural and central Nebraska, the only time they really experience or see what the issues are for biking and walking, biking in particular, is what they see when they're in Lincoln in session. So we want to. Lincoln does a great job, and they've been doing great things in Lincoln, and we just, if we can get them to see good stuff happening in Lincoln, then it'll start to click.
Yeah.
But sometimes it does take a little more education with some than others.
Yeah, I will let you speak to that one.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
That's a good way to put that.
That's a good way.
I was going to say, for things that we also have coming down the pipeline.
Thank you.
You wrapped that up so well. For some other things we have coming down the pipeline, we're working with some community and state colleges across the state, because especially in the rural parts, if there's a community college, that's usually a hub for hospitals, like a employer that's going to have a lot of, a business that's going to have a lot of employees. It's going to be kind of a regional hub for these police places in the rural areas. So we're starting to work with state colleges and community colleges to help them pursue becoming what's called a bicycle-friendly university. This is another certification that is provided by the League of American Bicyclists and would add to our overall state report card. So being able to talk to them about, do you have a bike share program? Do you have access to trails? Are you educating your students on that? Central Community College, which is in Hastings, Grand Island, and Columbus, actually just became the second university, school system within Nebraska to become officially certified by the league. Chadron State has a bike share program, and they're working towards it as well. And so these schools have a huge opportunity to be able to retain younger residents, be able to connect them to the community in a different way. And that would also be able to then mean in Columbus, because they have the bicycle-friendly certification, they started a bike share program, so then the community started adding bike share stations. So now it started to blossom into, instead of just being one on campus, it has 6 or 7 across the city. So it's really starting this momentum in the other areas. So we'll be working with the state and community colleges in the coming years as well.
Is it easy for you to really create those opportunities for relationships, or does it feel like they need to be open already to making this work for, making transportation a priority for them?
We're really fortunate, and we have a wonderful network of people who work on similar organizations, board members who are across the state. that really are passionate about our mission. So yes, obviously having somebody who's already a part of the organization makes it kind of an easier in as far as those conversations go. Can you speak to?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of unlikely partnerships out there, and local health departments is the perfect example of that. Local health departments want local residents to get out and be physically active and walk and keep their health, good. And so you can't really walk unless it's safe and good sidewalks. And so health departments are great to work with. Schools are obviously great to work with. You think about UNL, which is the other bike-friendly university in our state. Lots of reasons to get more kids coming in on bikes, parking, and all that. All of that is just always the perennial issue on any college campus. And there's sustainability. There's all kinds of environmental, different organizations that
come together,
that have a vested interest in safe transportation, and we just need to find those good people and connect with them.
That's really awesome. Thank you. You have some very exciting programming and advocacy coming up, and we're happy that you shared it with us. If people want to join your organization or join in this work, what are those steps? What does that look like?
I'll let you take that.
Yeah, thank you. So the most obvious answer is you can follow us on social media. You can sign up for our newsletter. Bike Walk Nebraska is where we're at on all of that stuff. If you would like to financially support the organization, we have a couple ways that you can do that. That does help us on our day-to-day efforts by far. And the more voices we have, like more ways we can count, the bigger we're able to make an impact. So we have annual memberships, we have student memberships, all the way up to like business memberships. If businesses want to get involved, that you can have discounted access to our events and our educational series that we'll be hosting. So that's one way we can do it. Or also, we are right now in our end of year campaign, and I would be remiss as the person who is in charge of development if I did not mention that. It's our 10 years, so we are trying to actively fundraise for our next 10 years and celebrate one decade by bringing in the next. So a lot of opportunities. We'll be calling for volunteers to help with our programming. And if anybody wants to become an instructor of these programmings, that's also an opportunity.
Well, thank you so much. It was enjoyable talking with you. Again, we're with Julie and Cait for the League, and I'm Krystal Fox with the League of Women Voters, reminding you to inform yourself about issues and be ready to go vote Omaha.